Welcome to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios for our flagship stations, 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99, where you can also find us in the Birmingham-Bloomfield area on Birmingham Area Municipal Access and on City Cable 15 of Southfield. Join us on Channel 10 in Waterford every day on the Media Network of Waterford and live to tape on Channel 10 in Orion Township and Lake Orion on Orion Neighborhood Television, otherwise known as ONTV. You can also find us on the radio in the Birmingham, Bloomfield, and Troy areas on the Biff Radio Network 88.1, the Biff, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District. Find us online on our Facebook pages, Civic Center TV 15 and at Lakes FM, on our website, civiccentertv.com, and beginning at 11 o'clock in the Michigan Hour and only the Michigan Hour on My Michigan TV, otherwise known as MyMy at mymytv.com, where you can also learn more about downloading their free MyMyTV apps for your smartphone and smart TV, but only after 11 o'clock because this is the Megacast. All of that information on our website at civiccentertv.com/Megacast, where you can also find all of our programs on demand and each individual interview as well. Then let's head over to our coronavirus page, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, where we have links to the most up-to-date information on COVID-19 from reliable expert resources at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and the Oakland County Health Division, so that you can stay up to date on everything that you need to know about the spread of COVID-19, precautionary tactics such as masking, as well as vaccinations and booster shots. Also on our coronavirus page at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. We feature articles from many journalistic outlets throughout the state of Michigan in order to keep you updated on COVID-19 and other stories making headlines across the Great Lakes state. Our top story on this St. Patrick's Day edition of the Megacast from the Detroit News: a federal panel will decide the fate of congressional maps after unequal population complaints. A federal three-judge panel will decide whether Michigan's newly adopted congressional district map should be redrawn to secure more equal populations after more than an hour of arguments Wednesday that one judge described as, quote, an exercise in tediousness, and closed quote. An attorney for several Michigan Republicans argued Wednesday that the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission was not able to show that neutral and consistent criteria drove the group's decision to forego more equal populations in favor of communities of interest. Quote, they've not just articulated anything, said Jason Torchinsky, a lawyer for the Republicans challenging the map. Torchinsky asked the judges to order, quote, small surgical changes to the maps to balance out numbers, noting population, quote, population equalizing is an exercise that map makers can do relatively quickly, and closed quote. The suit filed earlier this year challenged the commission's new 13-district congressional map on the grounds that it didn't comply with federal concepts of, quote, one person, one vote, and closed quote, requiring equal population numbers among districts. The lawsuit noted several districts were under and over the 775,179 person limit per district, with two coming 487 and 635 people outside of the total. The majority of other U.S. states are able to come much closer in balancing their populations among districts, Torchinsky argued. The commission countered Wednesday that it had stayed within what it believed were practical deviations from the required population totals. The group's litigation lawyer, Richard Rail, said that the commission had to balance population totals against maintaining communities based on a host of criteria, including media markets, historical significance, or cultural ties. He said what Republicans were asking was easier said than done, comparing population tweaks to attempting to solve a Rubik's Cube. Quote, the problem with assuming we can do that is that it's bald speculation, said Rail. Four members of the commission were in attendance on Wednesday. Commissioners Anthony Eade, Rebecca Zatella, the chairperson, Dustin Whitles, and Cynthia Orton. The three-judge panel, made up of Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals Judge Raymond Kethledge, U.S. District Court Judges Janet Neff and Paul Maloney, peppered both sides with questions during the hearing. All of them were appointed by Republican former President George W. Bush. Kethledge questioned why the Republicans did not produce a map with those quote-unquote surgical adjustments if it was as easy as they said. Without showing it was possible, he said, the plaintiffs were asking the panel to consider, quote, the advisability of ordering an abstraction, and closed quote. Quote, you're just offering your own sense of that, in closed quote, he told Torchinsky, continuing on. quote, "You're telling, not showing," end closed quote. The Republicans did provide an alternate map in their initial filing, but it was largely built around the group's communities of interest claim, which was thrown out earlier this month. Neff criticized the arguments against deviations in population as negligent and as, quote, "exercises in tediousness," end close quote. Quote, "Isn't this a little like asking how many angels can dance on the head of a pin?" Neff asked. Interesting question. Quote, "It's an exercise in tediousness," she added, continuing on, quote, "They've laid out what they think is a valid map, and all you're doing is niggling over relatively small deviations." Really interesting choice of words and questions there from the judge. Wow. Though the court previously dismissed the challenge to the map for how it implemented, quote, "communities of interest," the arguments Wednesday often came back to that concept since it was one of the reasons cited for population deviations among the districts. The judges noted that there wasn't a consistent definition for communities of interest in the Michigan Constitution, but it was not something that they could weigh in on. Torchinsky warned that without a clear definition for communities of interest or any solid stopping point on population deviations from the court, future commissions could draw maps with even wider deviations, saying, quote, "If you allow it here, there's no definitional limitation to it," he said. Kethledge, noting the commission pointed to the public comment to justify its decisions, asked both parties to submit proof from public comments opposing or supporting the claim that the public wanted communities of interest cited by the commission over more equal population distributions. Parties are required to submit those citations by Tuesday of next week. Heather Meingast, an assistant attorney general representing Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson in the case, asked the court, regardless of its ultimate decision, to keep timing in mind. The filing deadline for candidates is April 19th, and whatever changes were suggested for the map would have to be updated in the qualified voter file before that time. Quote, "It's a Herculean task. It's time-sensitive. It's labor-intensive," Meingast said, continuing on. "There isn't going to be a way for us to do that and meet the April 19th deadline." Read that full article as well as supporting materials from the Detroit News on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Our next article from the Detroit Free Press: dairy cows want to make daylight savings time permanent. The question is, will the Michigan legislature move forward with legislation? That's not from the Detroit Free Press. That was entirely my own saying. Don't blame that on them. I'll show myself out. Measures to make daylight savings time year-round are getting bipartisan support from state and national legislators. The U.S. Senate on Tuesday unanimously approved a bill that would make daylight saving time permanent. The bill came days after the nation turned its clocks forward 1 hour this week, and as the Michigan Senate is sitting on a bill that would do the same thing and passed the House in March of 2021. Senator Jeff Irwin, a Democrat from Ann Arbor who sponsored the Senate's version of the bill, said changing the clock does more harm than good. Irwin's bill encompasses both the part of Michigan that operates in the Eastern time zone and the 4 Upper Peninsula counties that operate in Central Time, saying, quote, "The tradition of changing our clocks twice a year is anachronistic," Irwin said, continuing on. "The switching of the clocks twice a year is causing real disruption in people's lives," and closed quote. Americans alternate between standard time and daylight savings, which countries like Germany and the United States implemented to save energy during World War I. It became a national practice in the United States in the 1960s. Irwin is referring to studies that show that an uptick in traffic crashes, workplace injuries, and productivity loss that occur when Americans change their clocks. According to 20 years of data analyzed by federal officials, the first week of daylight saving time is linked to a 6% increase in car crashes. There's also a link to workplace mishaps. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, analyzed data from 1983 to 2006 that showed, quote, "Daylight saving time results in people getting 40 minutes less of sleep, a 6% increase in workplace injuries, and nearly 68% more work days lost to injuries," and closed quote. Irwin said those problems would be mitigated if lawmakers stuck with one time. If they did, people would first notice sunlight, as the sun would not rise until about 9 a.m. during the winter and set an hour later around 6 p.m. in the evening, said Martin Baxter, an earth and atmospheric professor at Central Michigan University. Opponents of keeping daylight saving time argue it will result in icier road conditions because of the late sunrise, more cars on the road, and colder mornings. I don't think ice is going to form any quicker or less quick on the roads based on time, considering that is a construct of our society. However, I'm no expert. Quote, a lot of this is a matter of opinion and based on people's unique schedules, and close quote. Baxter said, continuing on, weather-wise, I don't think there would be that many more impacts with just an hour's difference, and considering that when we go to work, now it's already dark, and close quote. The measure has support from one constituency, dairy farmers, whose cows are used to being milked at specific times. Quote, when you change the time, typically their production backs off for a period until they settle into their new routine, said Bob Thompson, president of the Michigan Farmers Union. Continuing on, quote, having a stable time frame is much better than just switching back and forth. Just set the time and leave it, end close quote. An extra hour of sunlight in the evening could help people cope with seasonal affective disorder, a type of depression related to changes in the seasons and daylight hours. Jacob Rivard of Romeo has the condition and said it can be especially hard at the start of winter when the sun sets at 5 p.m. Quote, there's a 2 to 3 month period where I just completely shut down, Rivard said. Continuing on, in recent years, I've planned trips to warmer places to temporarily recharge the battery when things get bad, and close quote. If the U.S. House of Representatives follows the Senate's lead and passes the bill, Michigan would not need to pass its own legislation to keep the summer schedule of daylight savings time year-round. Irwin said if passed, his bill would only go into effect if neighboring states, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania adopted similar legislation. Ohio passed a similar but non-binding resolution in 2020. 16 states have enacted legislation for year-round daylight saving time. That full article from Bridge, Michigan on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Lastly, making headlines on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus from Bridge, Michigan, a heartwarming story at a Detroit Metropolitan Airport in Romulus. A child reunites with its favorite toy left at Metro Airport through a viral social media post campaign. This is, of course, as I said, from Bridge, Michigan. Austin was accidentally lost by his family at Detroit Metro Airport in early March. He was sitting near the water fountain in the middle of the McNamara terminal March 4th when Commerce Township resident Mary Joyce found him. Austin, the stuffed animal, was left behind in the often stressful craze of airport travel. Through the power of social media, Joyce was able to return the beloved toy cow to its rightful owner, a baby named Ray from Ohio. Quote, I have 7 kids and my 2 sons are both autistic and they are very, very attached to their plushies, said Joyce, a 51-year-old. Quote, I know what would happen in my life if either of them lost their stuffed animals, so I picked him up, and closed quote. She went to a nearby gate where airport personnel made a lost and found announcement over the loudspeaker, but no one came to claim Austin. Joyce walked around the airport with him, hoping someone would see the cow until her flight left to New York. Although she had no success at the airport, she was determined to not give up, and Austin became her travel companion. The pilot on her flight thought it was funny and took a picture with a stuffed animal cow, which led to Joyce creating an Instagram account for Austin. And then everything exploded. The DTW Facebook account posted it, hoping to find its real owner, and in a post that now has more than 12,000 shares. And then 6 days after Austin was left behind, Ray's mom saw it and commented on the post, quote, I saw someone say, this is mine. This is my daughter's favorite toy, and we were devastated, in close quote, said Joyce, who contacted the commenter right away. Quote, the mother texted me immediately and texted me pictures of her daughter with the cow. There had been a few people who said, quote, oh, this is mine, in close quote, but I kind of knew they were fibbing. I don't know how I knew it, but I just knew. I was very positive that this was the cow's family, end close quote. And so Joyce packed up Austin and sent him back to his family. A lot of strangers wouldn't pick up a random stuffed animal at the airport and spend days trying to find its owner. Joyce said she never second-guessed her goal. If the family had packed the toy cow while trying to travel light, it must have meant a lot to the child, she said. Quote, I kind of know if a parent brings an animal to like that to an airport, there's a reason for it, and if the kid loses it, it can be a crisis, end closed quote. Joyce had no idea that her mission to reunite a kid with their stuffed animal would be so popular, but she's so happy that it did. Quote, I was shocked. I'm just glad it worked. I'm glad we got it home. I'm glad the baby was happy to get it back, because like I said, I know what it's like, in closed quote. Ray's family sent Joyce a brand new stuffed cow so she could keep the Instagram account running. Quote, it's the same exact cow. It has arrived at my house, and he will now be my traveling companion, in closed quote. That heartwarming article from the Detroit Free Press on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, as well as those ever helpful links to accurate information from the CDC, the MDHHS, and the Oakland County Health Division, so that you can stay up to date on COVID-19 and other things, making stories, making top headlines lines across the state of Michigan. We have a great program ahead on this Thursday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Craig Bryson from the Road Commission for Oakland County. So as you were out there listening, driving into work or around town or at work, seeing those orange barrels and screaming, "Why?" you'll actually have an answer. That's up next. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Whether you're the city,
the county,
or the Huron River Watershed Council.
As partners working together to protect our water resources, we agree.
Pet waste is the source of harmful bacteria in the Huron River.
When it's left on the ground, it can wash into the storm drains.
These lead directly to our streams. No filters, no treatment.
Here's one thing we know that can help keep our water clean.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
So pick up pet waste and trash it.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line, for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
The weather is getting warmer. It looks like the winter season is in the proverbial rearview mirror, but what will very soon be in the view of your literal rearview mirror are those pesky orange traffic barrels, as it's construction season here in the state of Michigan. Joining us now to talk about some projects in Metro Detroit and in Oakland County is Craig Bryson, Senior Communications Manager at the Road Commission for Oakland County. Craig, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tyler. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you with us. Let's begin talking about some of the newer projects that will be beginning in this spring and summer season in Oakland County in particular. One of those is Orchard Lake Road from 13 Mile to 14 Mile Road. That's going to begin in just about a week. What is that project? How will it impact traffic, and what's the projected outcome?
That's a very large project. It's about a $7.3 million project. That is basically a total resurfacing and partial reconstruction of Orchard Lake Road between 13 and 14. So it kind of breaks down into three sections. The section from the lower 2/3 from 13 Mile north, about 2/3 of a mile, is going to be completely resurfaced. Then we'll build a roundabout at the Orchard Lake Plaza driveway. And then the section north of there to 14 Mile Road will be reconstructed as a divided boulevard. So that's going to provide significantly improved traffic flow, improved safety, and we think improved access to the businesses and residential neighborhoods along that section.
There are also signs saying that 14 Mile Road is going to be undergoing some scheduled work between Orchard Lake and Farmington. Is that a Road Commission project?
It's not. That's a City of Farmington Hills project, but that was, I believe, expected to start today. I haven't been out there, so I don't know if it actually has started yet. But that will be closing 14 Mile Road between Orchard Lake and Farmington, overlapping our project.
And so when you have that those city projects, because there's a difference between cities and townships and villages and what responsibilities they have for their roads. When these road projects that are done by cities are completed, how does that affect, especially if they're crossing major thoroughfares that are under county jurisdiction through the Road Commission, how does that affect then the Road Commission's operations of those roadways and maybe even subsequent projects to match the quality of roads or the design of those roadways?
Well, that's a great question. We work very closely with our partner communities. I think sometimes there's a perception that we all just kind of randomly do these things, but we actually do work closely together, and we make sure our projects match our engineers, talk to the community engineers and vice versa. And in this case, it's actually sometimes preferable to have projects happening at the same time, rather than if you stagger them, you would have major road closures in that area 2 years in a row. This way we get it all done in 1 year, and we get 2 great new roads out of the process. So there is a lot of coordination, a lot of communication that goes on.
And so when just circling back to some of the projects you spoke about earlier. One of those is the 13-mile and 14-mile on Orchard Lake Road, which will be beginning soon. You mentioned there's going to be a roundabout project into there, and roundabouts, we've seen them become much more common over the past decade or so in Oakland County and really throughout the state of Michigan. Those do end up being pretty major projects for those roadways because it's affecting an entire intersection. It's affecting 4 different routes, as well as the lead-in to those routes for changing of lanes, for changing of signage, certainly the design of those roundabouts. Just how long is the process of going into that design, doing the research that's necessary to understand the traffic flow in the current setting of a road versus in whatever design A, B, or C, whichever is chosen for that roundabout project may be chosen in the future? What sort of planning, how extensive is that before you actually announce that you're going to close down a road or be limiting traffic in a road in order to do these projects?
Great question. And again, I think people sometimes think that we just come up with these on the spur of the moment and decide to do them. This project was in the works for, at least 10 years, I believe. We've been talking with the community, working on this, coming up with the design. And the way it works is we first recognize that there's a need for something to be done. Then we'll begin to think about what the potential alternatives could be, identify some possible alternatives, look at the costs of those, begin looking for funding sources, because these are very expensive projects, then select a final process, in this case, with input from the community officials, the businesses along there. And then we begin to plan construction, which that planning for the construction in and of itself is at least a year or 2 out from when construction actually starts. So it's a in a big project like this, it's a multi-year process to get to the point where we are starting this coming Monday.
We're joined by the Senior Communications Manager at the Road Commission for Oakland County, Craig Bryson, with us on the Michigan Megacast. More information on rcoc.org to keep up to date on construction projects in Oakland County. And so, Craig, it seems like in Oakland County, especially over the past decade, certainly in the last few years, as we've seen more of these roundabouts go into play, that roundabouts are the way of the future in designing intersections, at least in Oakland County. From your consultation from the Commission's consultation with neighboring counties and their road commissions, with Michigan and with the state of Michigan, and really with other experts in this particular field throughout the country, are roundabouts the way that we're going to be designing our intersections across the board generally in the future? And if so, what is the rationale behind that?
Yeah, and absolutely, from our point of view, absolutely. Now, not all road agencies are as on board as we are. The Federal Highway Administration is a huge proponent of roundabouts. Macomb Roads is a big proponent, Washtenaw Roads. Wayne County to the south has not yet kind of embraced the roundabout, but many road agencies across the state have. And the reasons are twofold. First and foremost is safety. Many of the traffic fatalities and the serious injuries we see in urbanized areas are at the busy intersections, and they happen because 2 things: either somebody has a head-on collision, or they have what we call a T-bone collision, where they're turning left and get broadsided by an oncoming car. And if you think about it, a roundabout physically eliminates the possibility of either of those 2 types of crashes. Now, what we do sometimes see is a slight uptick in minor crashes, side swipes, or slow-speed rear-end collisions. Those generally will dent a little bit of metal, but people will not get injured. So what we see is with roundabouts, we've virtually eliminated traffic fatalities at those intersections and dramatically reduced the serious injury crashes, potentially up to about 90% reduction in serious injury crashes and fatalities. So that's amazing. There's very little else we can do as a road agency that would have that kind of impact on safety. So that's number one. Number 2 is traffic flow. Engineers calculate that a roundabout will improve the amount of traffic going through an intersection by about 30 to 50% without widening any of the roads leading into the intersection, just by replacing a signalized intersection with a roundabout. And that makes sense. If you think about it, at a signalized intersection, 50% of the traffic is stopped at any given time, right? So with the roundabout, traffic is flowing continuously in all directions, and you get more traffic through there. And so it does help to eliminate or reduce congestion.
We're joined by Craig Bryson, Senior Communications Manager at the Road Commission for Oakland County, joining us on the Megacast. And so other projects going on in Oakland County out in the Waterford area, for those that are joining us on the media network of Waterford on Channel 10. Pontiac Lake Road and Airport Road. What is that road construction project? Is that an Oakland County project, and what will be going on in that area?
Let's see. Let me check. Pontiac Lake Road. I hate to say this, I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. I don't have that one on the list I have in front of me. That may be a simple resurfacing job. But I don't have that in front of me. I have to get back to you on that. But we do have a lot of projects in the greater West Bloomfield area that we're doing this year. Some of the other examples are Orchard Lake Road between Middle Belt and Old Telegraph, doing a major resurfacing and a little bit of widening there. Pontiac Trail between Green Lake and Haggerty, starting April 18th, we're going to completely resurface that road, and that road will be closed as well. We're coming back to the Union Lake Road culvert, and I think we talked about this last year. We're replacing the Union Lake Road culvert just south of Wise Road. That's going to start April 25th, and that road will be closed as well for that project. And then we've got a lot, again, this year, a lot of simple overlay resurfacing projects, which may be what the Pontiac Lake Road project that you're referencing might be.
And so, Craig, we're joined by Craig Bryson. He is the Senior Communications Manager at the Road Commission for Oakland County, joining us on the Michigan Megacast. In the past, we've spoken to you and to others in different various state and county agencies about staffing issues. There have been issues across different industries, of course, during the pandemic, especially over the last year or so, as businesses have begun to reopen, as people who were either laid off or had left their jobs were eligible to be re-entering the job market. What's the status with your organization at this time, especially as these construction projects are beginning, and if there are mounting staffing issues, you would imagine that would delay some of these projects or stretch them out a little bit longer?
Well, right now we're not seeing that there'll be any delays. Most of the construction projects are actually done by contractors that we hire, and I'm sure that some of them are having some labor problems, but none of them have gotten to the point where they've told us they can't meet our deadlines, and they're still bidding on the jobs, they're still accepting them, and they're still telling us they can go ahead and meet our deadlines. So at the moment, we seem to be in good shape. We did have a little bit of challenge late last year in getting snowplow drivers for the winter, but we came up with a program where we ended up training some employees to get their commercial driver's license ourselves, which is something new for us, and that worked out very well, and we were able to fill most of our positions and able to get through the winter, fortunately.
We're joined by Senior Communications Manager Craig Bryson from the Road Commission for Oakland County with us on the Michigan Megacast. On that note, as the weather is getting warmer now, this week is going to be quite warm in comparison to last week and the last few weeks. Of course, even with that, we had snow fairly recently, just over the weekend and late last week. We had some snow here in southeastern Michigan. So for your organization, knowing that we're only in March, we're only approaching the beginning of April, the winter season in Michigan can go on for a very long time. Just how long is an organization like the Road Commission for Oakland County prepared to go out and tend to the roads for snowy and icy conditions that are characteristic of winter, even as we approach spring?
We are prepared at least through the end of April. We have seen some pretty serious snowstorms historically in April, so while we don't want that, it's not impossible. So we are prepared for that. Typically, by the time we get to the end of April, it's pretty unlikely we'll get anything more than that. But we can always ramp up if we have to into May. Hopefully, that would not be the case. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of winter still coming at us this year.
More information on the Road Commission for Oakland County's website, rcocweb.org. That is rcocweb.org. We're joined by their Senior Communications Manager, Craig Bryson, on the Michigan Megacast. Craig, just another few minutes with you before we'll say goodbye at this time. Is there anything else in Oakland County or in surrounding areas through partnerships or through state agencies that you've communicated with that people should be aware of as they get out on the roads and as the weather improves and more people then are more regularly driving?
Well, two big issues we've been seeing lately, and I'm sure you're familiar with these, or your viewers are, potholes and gravel roads. And we continue to be out on overtime. We're staying late again today to continue to tackle potholes. We've been in on the weekends and doing extension of shifts every day, roughly in the evenings, to get as many potholes as we can. But we are still in that cycle of freeze-thaw, which is the ideal time for the formation of potholes, and we're still seeing a lot of them. So we appreciate the public's patience as we do everything we can to address that. That same weather cycle is causing a real tough time on the gravel roads. And again, we're trying to do everything we can right now on the gravel roads. Some of them, it's tough until the frost comes out of the ground and the ground thaws out, and then those roads will stabilize. Right now, we're seeing a lot of very unstable gravel roads. Again, we're grading and doing what we can, but there's limited things we can do on gravel roads at this time of year. So again, we thank the public for their patience as we get through these challenging times for our roads.
Craig, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tyler.
Whether you're the city,
The county.
Or the Huron River Watershed Council.
as partners working together to protect our water resources, we agree.
Pet waste is the source of harmful bacteria in the Huron River.
When it's left on the ground, it can wash into the storm drains.
These lead directly to our streams. No filters, no treatment.
Here's one thing we know that can help keep our water clean.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
So pick up pet waste and trash it.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Joining us now is Oakland County Executive David Coulter, who recently made his State of the County address. Executive, thank you for being with us this morning.
Tyler, always great to be with you. Thanks.
Appreciate having you on. So can you touch on some of the highlights of the topics that you emphasized last night at the State of the County address? It was the night before the date that we are recording this, and that this is live on the Oakland County Megacast. And obviously, it's been another complicated year here in Oakland County. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of different factors to consider. What are some of the highlights that you went over last night at your State of the County address?
Yeah, thanks. What I really tried to do is lay out sort of a 5-year roadmap for the future. What does Oakland County really need to make sure that it's paying attention to, leaning into, investing in over the next 5 years to make sure that we remain a competitive and great place to live? And so, some of those buckets include a strong economy, right? We know that Oakland County is a good place economically. You can get a good job here. But are we doing enough for our small businesses? So I touched on that. Safe and healthy communities. That's safe and healthy people, I should say. And we know how important that is. Our health, but also our communities being safe places. And we talked about that. And then finally, I kind of have this last bucket that I would just say, letting people live their best lives. The kinds of things like parks and trails and workforce development that really help make this an exceptional county to be. So I laid out this 5-year plan, and just as importantly, I want to say this. I want to hold us accountable. We have goals and we have measures, and we're going to have data around these plans. And now, as of now, you can go to our website at oakgov.com, and all of these goals will be there, and the measures will be there. So you can hold us accountable to achieving the things that I talked about last night.
We're joined by Oakland County Executive David Coulter on the Megacast. More information on their website, oakgov.com. And so a big factor in all of this over the last couple of years has been COVID-19. And it looks like we're in a much more relaxed place now, and things are looking up for the first time in a long time as we've been dealing with this pandemic. But COVID-19 is not going away just yet. So at this moment in time in Oakland County, what's been the conversation between your office, between the board, and of course between the Oakland County Health Division and its approach to continuing to protect the community and advise the community on what is happening on the COVID-19 front, while also understanding that that uncertainty should be playing a factor into plans for the future?
Yeah, it's a great question because, as you put it so well, COVID is not over, but as the numbers indicate, as the transmission rate indicates, we are at a different place now. Our transmission rate now is considered low by CDC standards, which is what we've used from the beginning. They've modified those standards somewhat, but we are at a low transmission rate. And so that allows us to do more free things. We don't have the mask requirement in schools right now or in indoor settings. So the transmission rates have guided this. We've tried to follow the science as best we could from the beginning of this. As you indicate, there could be spikes. Our health department is always monitoring this on a daily basis. And we're also talking to our health system, our hospitals, to see what's happening there. So the good news is we are at a different place, and that's what made me feel comfortable giving sort of a more of a forward-looking 5-year outlook versus just talking about how we're going to get through, the pandemic and the terrible things, that has wreaked on us. So I do think we're in a very different place, but well said. We may have to reinstitute measures at some point, depending on what the virus forces us to do.
And you mentioned refocusing goals for the county going forward in that 5-year plan, some of those benchmarks, some of the ways that you, and by you I mean the county, is aiming to accomplish those goals. Something else to refocus on after COVID-19, or as we begin to find our way maybe out of the COVID-19 pandemic, is the role of public health in our communities. Because in the past, it's been, of course, preventing spread of the disease, whether it's West Nile virus outbreaks, or if it's the seasonal flu or common cold or some other disease that may be coming through the community. That's kind of been that role. But we've seen over the course of the pandemic, not just COVID-19, but other conditions that have previously been kind of pushed to the side, such as mental health, being something that's considered much more critical to the public health now in the context of what we've been through with COVID-19. How does that help to inform both your office and the Oakland County Health Division in refocusing its goals going forward?
You bring up a great point. Mental health was a problem before COVID. Not enough people had access, but it's a crisis now. And I've often said that if there's a silver lining to COVID, maybe there's a couple, but one of them is that the stigma around mental health has gone down. It used to be that people were reluctant to get help because they didn't want to be identified as somebody that needed help. But frankly, what we've seen in COVID, anybody can have a mental health issue just like you get a physical health issue. You can be rich or poor, black or white, live in the city or the suburb. It hits everybody. And so one of the things I talked about during this speech is that we're investing $13 million of our American Rescue Plan dollars on mental health services. So that's going to cover our nonprofits in the county, so that if you're a resident and you need access to mental health services, I encourage you to reach out, and we're going to be able to meet another 66,000 people's needs in Oakland County. But we're also going to invest in our students in school, and we're going to invest in our hospitals so that the people that have a mental health crisis and show up in the ER can get help when they get there. So we're leaning in and trying to address the need. But I want to encourage all your listeners, anyone can get it. And if you feel like you have any kind of issues, it's just like a physical health issue. Get it taken care of.
We're joined by Oakland County Executive David Coulter on the Oakland County Megacast. More information on their website, oakgov.com, for more information on county programs and plans going forward, and of course to review and watch for yourself the State of the County address that Executive Coulter made earlier on the week of this recording, on this live broadcast. Again, we're joined by Oakland County Executive David Coulter on the Oakland County Megacast. Another driving force in the future plans of Oakland County is, of course, on the business end of things. We've seen our commercial businesses, our retail businesses really across the board have also taken a large hit during the COVID-19 pandemic, but we're also seeing there is this sort of drive for industry here in Oakland County and in southeastern Michigan, really across the state, from a variety of different industries, including the automotive industry, really investing in electric vehicle production here in Michigan and here in Oakland County. How much of a role does that play? Does that investment by many different companies, including General Motors here locally, play into Oakland County's plans going into the future?
Yeah, I started my speech by driving into the auditorium in a Chevy Bolt that's made at the Orient Assembly Plant, the GM plant, to highlight the fact that, GM made a $4 billion investment there, the largest investment they've ever made in the history of their company and the largest private investment ever made in Oakland County. So it was a huge thing, and I think it reaffirms that Michigan is a competitive place in the EV market and that we can compete and win in this space. But what I also talked about in my speech is this: those kinds of big wins are wonderful and we celebrate them when we get them. But most businesses in Oakland County are small businesses, 50 people or less. And that's where we really have to make sure that we're leaning in and giving the resources that they need. Over the last couple of years, we've given 15,000 of them support through the county, through grants and toolkits and the like. But going forward, we're going to really lean in on those small businesses. We created a new team, and I announced this at the speech, called Business Forward. And these are 9 business consultants who are not going to work in the office, but are going to work directly in the communities with small businesses, helping make sure that they have the resources, the support, the grant writing, whatever it is that they need to be successful, they can help our small businesses. Because that's really the backbone of our economy here in Oakland County.
Especially as we add more industry to Oakland County, another thought that comes up, another topic that comes to mind is sustainability. That's been a significant buzzword in politics, in industry, in government for a number of years as we attempt to maintain a certain quality of life in our society, but also balance that with the need to protect the environment so that we are able to live that quality of life for a significant amount of time. Later this hour, we'll be joined by Dr. Majgan Raji from Oakland University, who's part of the leadership team from their university sustainability plan. Can you talk about the partnership between the county and Oakland University on sustainability in Oakland County and making plans to accelerate into the future, but do so in a way that is thoughtful, that is considerate, and that is prudent to maintaining our environment?
Yeah, I'm so glad he's going to be your guest. He's smarter about this than I am. The great folks at Oakland University are really leaning into this space and really have become recognized leaders in this space of sustainability at the higher ed level. And we're, I think, really blessed to have Oakland University in this county. And so I announced at my speech a brand new partnership with Oakland University, where they're going to help us do the data and the research and the strategic planning around environmental sustainability. And I can't thank them enough for their help, because, as you said, this is a critical, a moral issue, frankly. If we can do all the other things right, and if we don't figure out how to protect the health of this planet so that we survive as a species, it's all going to be for naught. So I think we have a responsibility to ourselves and our future generations to make sure that we're working in this space as well as we can.
We're joined by Oakland County Executive David Coulter on the Oakland County Megacast. More information from Oakland County, including everything you need to know about the State of the County address that occurred earlier earlier on in this week, that we are both broadcasting live and recording this particular interview on their website, oakgov.com, for more information. oakgov.com to learn more. And so we have a significant Ukrainian population here in southeastern Michigan, really across the state of Michigan, and here in Oakland County County, especially, obviously, our thoughts are with those in Ukraine and those of Ukrainian descent with Ukrainian friends and family who are affected by the barbaric Russian invasion of Ukraine. Knowing that we have such a significant Ukrainian American population and so many that have family and friends or others in their life that are over in Ukraine, what sort of support, either to resources or assisting in directing to resources, is maybe provided through Oakland County to residents who may want to help those in Ukraine as they're dealing with this crisis?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's so devastating what's happening there. The Russian invasion is just unbelievably unacceptable. And I think a lot of us thought we would not see something like that in our lifetime. And as you mentioned, we have a significant Ukrainian American population in this county and in this region. And it was important for me as a leader to stand up and support the democracy that they're fighting so hard to protect. I went to a Ukrainian prayer vigil in Southfield where there's a Ukrainian church there. It was beautiful. I went there with my friend Andrei Duji, who's a leader in the Ukrainian community that I've known for many, many years. I was really proud of the fact that we lit up our county building in the blue and gold of the Ukrainian flag to show support for those folks. And as you said, we're also working to get resources as we can and to help coordinate that for our residents to donate. I would also encourage you, because there's been some bad actors in this field, that if you go to the attorney, and I've talked to the Attorney General about this because she's very concerned, as always, unfortunately, there's bad characters that try to make money off of these sort of tragedies, which is disgusting to me. But if you go to her website, at the Attorney General's website, she's also tracking who not to give money to, who to give and to not give money to. So I encourage your folks to do them. And then just otherwise, if you're a praying person, to hold the folks in Ukraine in your prayers and thoughts, because they need all of our strength right now.
Yeah, we had a couple of interviews recently, too, with more information on how you can determine legitimate actors in relief for Ukraine. We had Sam Rosenberg on yesterday, who's a co-founder of Share Detroit. They just created a new effort, Share Ukraine, at shareukraine.org. And we had Melanie Ducanel from the Michigan Better Business Bureau on with us recently, also talking about those charity scams really early on in the crisis over in Ukraine. So all those good resources, those are on civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you can view both of those interviews. And of course, the Attorney General's office, always helpful in their information on avoiding scams. We're joined by Oakland County Executive David Coulter on the Oakland County Megacast. Last week, related to the Attorney General's office, you were at part of a press conference with the Attorney General, with Dana Nessel, as well as Oakland County Sheriff Michael Bouchard, talking about a $26 billion opioid settlement with the nation's three major pharmaceutical distributors, Cardinal McKesson and AmerisourceBergen, as well as Johnson & Johnson. Can you talk about the settlement, how it affects Oakland County, and more particularly how it affects providing the services and providing the aid that's needed to those that have been affected by the opioid crisis right here in Oakland County?
Yeah, and it is a crisis. There's no question. I think we've all seen that overdoses and deaths are up, in particular because of fentanyl, which is just so much more deadly, and that these opioids have been overprescribed and oversold by these pharmaceuticals. They were wrong, and they got caught for it, and they should have got caught for it, and they have been penalized significantly. And Oakland County is one of the counties that's joined the lawsuit early on, back in 2016, I believe, before I was executive, but I supported it. We did the same when I was mayor of Ferndale, because it's important that we hold these companies responsible for the devastating effects. And we've all seen them. We've seen it in our family. We've seen the addiction that's happened. And so we're going to get a sizable portion of that money, but we're going to get it over 10 years. So it's going to be about $1.5 million a year for the next 10 years. And as promised in the settlement, we'll use every dime of that money to go into drug-related programs, whether it's prevention programs, treatment programs. I'm working with my health director right now to figure out exactly the best way to spend that money. We haven't got it yet, but every nickel of that will go into helping give families and individuals relief from this awful epidemic that we're faced with.
Executive Coulter, just another couple minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else at this time that would be important for Oakland County residents to keep in mind in terms of county programs or things that are on the docket that people should be looking forward to and keeping themselves informed on here in Oakland County?
Well, you did a great job of hitting on the main theme, so I really appreciate it. Maybe the last thing I'll throw in is, and I shared this in the State of the County, we've all seen how important our parks are. Sometimes we forget about them or forget the importance of them, but I think in COVID we all found out how important it was to get outside, get some fresh air, connect with nature, reconnect with ourselves. And one of the things I talked about last night is, one of the assets in Oakland County is that we have 138 miles of trails, which are amazing, but my goal, and I stated it at the speech, is to get us to 400 miles. I think I'd love to see a web of trails throughout our communities, throughout our counties, and in the region, so that we can bike ride and ride, walk and whatever else we want to do to get out into nature. So our green spaces continue to be an important asset in Oakland County.
Executive, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Great to see you as always.
Motorcyclists are hard to see. To keep everyone safer, it's important to always look for them and know where most crashes occur. 84% of motorcycle and vehicle crashes happen on streets, not highways. And most crashes with motorcyclists occur when vehicle drivers are turning left. So before turning, especially to the left, make sure you look for motorcyclists. Then look again. It could save a life.
To Sofia and Gabriel. Even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
Learn more information about the program by visiting our website at civiccentertv.com and clicking on our Megacast link, where you'll learn information about all of our partnering stations, including My Michigan TV, otherwise known as MyMime. Joining us now is a U.S. Senator representing the state of Michigan, Gary Peters, joining us on the Megacast. He was on hand earlier on this week as Congress was addressed by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky relating to the Russian war in Ukraine. Senator Peters, thank you for being with us today.
Well, pleasure to be with you again.
Appreciate having you on. So for you and for your colleagues in both chambers of Congress at the federal level, what was it like for you yesterday to hear the words from the front lines from President Zelensky of Ukraine as his country deals now for several weeks at this point with an invasion from Russia?
Well, certainly, we are all impressed and inspired by President Zelensky, his courage, his leadership in the face of this onslaught from Mr. Putin and this unprovoked illegal attack on the country. And certainly, we are all just so troubled to see the images of what is happening in Ukraine. The video that the president played was particularly powerful. To show the extent of the devastation that the Russian military is doing to the country of Ukraine, and certainly our hearts go out to the Ukrainian people, and it just really strengthened our resolve to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to help the Ukrainian people in the form of military assistance to help the Ukrainian military fight against this unprovoked attack by the Russian military and Mr. Putin, as well as provide humanitarian aid for folks both in Ukraine as well as the refugees that are now flowing across the borders to get away from the war.
So, Senator, we've heard the calls from Ukrainians, including from government officials such as President Zelensky, asking for NATO and for Western allies in and outside of NATO to conduct a no-fly zone over Ukraine. And there's where this balancing act comes into play. Because on the one hand, as you said, we in the U.S. want to help our friends over in Ukraine. This is an unprovoked invasion by a world superpower that is taking a harrowing effect on the citizens of Ukraine. But at the same time, you're playing a balance balancing act there too, because you want to provide as much assistance as possible to this nation that is under attack without further provoking a world superpower and escalating this conflict. Where does that balance come into play in the negotiations internally in the U.S. government from that standpoint, and what can be provided to the Ukrainians without then provoking President Putin, who clearly is not all there and is willing to escalate this to significant levels if he is provoked?
Well, and that's an incredibly important question, and you're right about Mr. Putin. We have to. He's not acting rationally in my mind. Maybe in his mind somehow it's rational, but to do what he's doing simply makes no sense. We have to remember that Russia does possess nuclear weapons, and they have tactical nuclear weapons that they believe that they can use in Europe. So it is a dangerous situation. Folks, certainly President Zelensky's asking for a no-fly zone, and if I were him, I'd be asking for everything that I could to help my country. But we do have to weigh the potential impact of escalation involving NATO troops on the ground in a war that could spin into very dangerous proportions. I think it's important for folks to realize that if we put a no-fly zone, that brings us into combat. And we're relying on our advice from our military leaders. But in order to put together a no-fly zone, the first thing you have to do is go in and take out anti-aircraft systems that the Russians have in place that would put those aircraft in jeopardy. And when you attack those systems, you will be killing Russian soldiers that are manning those sites. Those sites will fire back on our aircraft, and according to our military experts, we will lose American pilots in that operation. And then once that occurs, if there's any incursion from Russian aircraft, you have to shoot them down, and you will be in air combat. And we can do it. We can have a no-fly zone, but folks have to realize that there will be casualties, both Russian and American casualties in actual combat, and that is clearly a significant escalation.
We've heard some rumors, too, Senator Peters, that the Russian government may be considering the use of biological weapons, and that they have been beginning propaganda efforts to state that Ukraine may or may not be producing biological weapons as an excuse. And we've seen President Putin do this, where he kind of casts blame on an adversary, so to speak, and then commits that exact act. That being said, biological weapons, obviously egregious. It's something that the United States has in the past, in other conflicts worldwide, said that is a sort of red line where there will be some intervention, at least in the form of sanctions in that regard. But in this conflict, I think there's quite a lot of curiosity from the American public and from the worldwide community as well. Are there any red lines in this conflict that Russia could cross that would then spark or require, is probably a better word to use, require further effort from the U.S. and from NATO allies in order to protect the security of the entire world?
Well, certainly we have responsibilities with NATO, and if any NATO territory is breached by the Russian military, our treaty obligations as part of NATO would require a response of the entire alliance against Russia. So I think Mr. Putin knows that. Hopefully that is a major deterrent for him to do that. But certainly that is a line to be crossed. And we had a recent attack near the Polish border that killed a number of Ukrainian service members and civilians, but it was very close. But if you have an attack on territory of a country that's part of NATO, that would be clearly a red line.
We're joined by U.S. Senator Gary Peters on the Michigan Megacast. Senator, I know that we're short on time, so before I let you go, I do want to ask you, you and a fellow Michigan Senator, Debbie Stabenow, recently introduced the Help Education After Loss, or HEAL Act, to address mental health in our schools, inspired by the wake of the tragic shooting at Oxford High School in November of 2021. Can you tell us a little bit about this act and the ways that it may help students in Michigan and all throughout the U.S.?
Well, this legislation is to provide mental health services to students and staff who are in a school that has been impacted by a mass shooting or some other type of traumatic event, and provide mental health services immediately to those individuals in that school. So it'll provide counselors, psychologists, social workers, others that can be there to help folks immediately in the aftermath of a tragedy. It has been estimated that roughly a third of folks who witness a mass shooting develop PTSD, the post-traumatic stress disorders, and or other kinds of acute stress disorders. It's critically important to help these individuals with mental health services as quickly as you can after an event. This legislation awards federal grants to local districts and schools. I work closely with the Oakland schools as well as national associations of social workers and other professionals to provide the resources necessary to help these individuals. The legislation will also study the impacts on student mental health. We need to know more about how these violent and traumatic events impact students, and so that we can better prepare should we have another horrific event like we saw in Oxford, and develop best practices. And it depends. If you look around the country, some schools simply don't have any type of mental health services or counseling available for their students. And if they get if they have a violent attack or a mass shooting occur in one of those schools, those students are in a particularly vulnerable position, and we want to make sure we're helping victims and folks who witnessed these attacks as quickly and as effectively as possible.
Senator Peters, thank you very much for joining us.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Appreciate your time. We've been joined by U.S. Senator Gary Peters on the Michigan Megacast. We're going to take a break. On the other side, nearly 30 years, over 30 years at the helm at Clarkston High School, a legendary coach in Michigan high school football, multiple state championships, one of the winningest records in high school football history in the Great Lakes State, and now he is calling it a career. Up next, we will speak with Kurt Richardson, the outgoing head coach of Clarkston High School varsity football next. You are watching and listening to the Megacast.
High school students get less than the recommended 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. This can cause pain, obesity, and can very negatively affect your mental health. When you have a consistent 7 to 9 hours of sleep every day, you get sick less often, lose more weight, and have better relationships with those around you. For more information about the dangers of sleep deprivation, go to sleepfoundation.org. This message is brought to you by the WBHS Digital Media Arts Program and 89.3 Lakes FM.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
Joining us now, he is retiring after 45 years with the Clarkston Wolves football program, 35 of which he has served as their head coach. Kurt Richardson joins us now on the Megacast. Coach, thank you for being with us.
Oh, no problem. Glad to be here.
Appreciate having you on. So 35 seasons at the helm, coaching the Clarkston Wolves down in Oakland County. You were retiring along with longtime assistant coaches Phil Price, Steve Pearson, and John King after you all kind of reached a mutual agreement that this is the time. This is a good time for us to step away and call it a career after such long and illustrious careers at Clarkston. For you and for your assistant coaches that also are retiring alongside of you, what made this the right time? What made this feel like the right time to step away?
Well, there wasn't any one big thing. It's more or less a gut feeling. It's something we had talked about the last 2 years. And we didn't feel right the last 2 years. This year, it just felt like the right thing to do. I wanted to go out with a good taste in my mouth. We've been pretty good for a while, and I didn't want to end it on a bad season. I also wanted the cupboards to be full for the next guy coming in. So he steps in and just continues our winning tradition.
And so, over your time with Clarkston, 274 wins, 98 losses, and 16th in state history in total for wins as the head coach. And of course, being with the program for that long, you've seen a lot of young men and others come through your program and go on to bigger and better things, both in football and beyond. What are some of your great memories that you can go into for your 35 years with the Clarkston Wolves football program as their varsity football coach?
Well, obviously the state championships, they jump out at you right away. But it's been more than state championships. It's been the relationships, like John King, who's leaving with us. He played for me back in the day. A lot of our assistant coaches are former Clarkston players. So it's a lot more than the championships. It's about the relationships. We've had great kids here. We've had great families. So that's really the big thing for me.
When you started with Clarkston 45 years ago, you started as an assistant coach. After 10 years as an assistant, you became the head coach. You've been the head coach for 35 years of your 45 with the program. If someone would have told you 45 years ago that you would have been with that program for 45 years, 35 of which you would have been the head coach, won multiple championships, had a record 16th in state's history in total wins, what would you have said?
I would have told them they were crazy. When I took it, I was raw as could be. I had some great guidance by the people I worked for, Rob White, Walt Winemko, and did everything I could to learn every book I could find, every video I could find, talk to coaches, and here we are.
Did you ever expect that you would be continuing as the coach, or as a coach, and then as the head coach for Clarkston for so long? Did you ever imagine when you took that job that you were going to be involved with this program for years and years?
No, and it's kind of flown by. It's not like, you say, okay, well, this is 20 years, this is 25. It just, it's when I look back on it now, it's just flown by.
Yeah, you've been part of a number of really historic games here in the state of Michigan, including, I recall the 2017 state championship game. I was involved in the radio broadcast for your opponent for the West Bloomfield Lakers broadcast of that game. One of the more peculiar games we've ever seen at the MHSAA level, and in my lifetime, I call it the weirdest football game I've ever seen. A great defensive matchup, really odd of course on the scoreboard, being that it ended 3-2. Can you talk about that from the coach's perspective, having gone through that? Obviously, there's a benefit of you being on the winning side with the 3 points that your team had scored versus West Bloomfield's 2. Talk about that experience and how that championship stands out among all the ones that you had been involved in, both winning and participating in the final game.
Well, it's definitely special. You say 3-2 and people kind of laugh. And, they had beaten us earlier in the year pretty good. Yeah. And we changed our philosophy going in a little bit. And, we kind of sat back and hoped that they were going to make mistakes and we could take advantage of them, and that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, it was a very interesting game. It was a great defensive matchup, as I said. Both your team and West Bloomfield's were excellent on the offensive side of the ball, and your defenses really came out and played and made that game what it was, such a low-scoring game. It was a safety early on in the game, the first quarter, and then no scoring throughout the rest of the game till late in the fourth, where your team marched down the field, had faced the fourth down, kicked the field goal, and then made a big defensive stop with about a minute left to play. So really, really classic game, that 2017 Division I state championship game where Clarkston defeated the West Bloomfield Lakers 3-2. So for you, Kurt, 35 years as the head coach, 45 with the program as an assistant and as a head coach in total. What about coaching will you miss the most now as you go into your retirement?
The relationships, definitely the relationships. My defensive guys are my best friends. They're the guys, I've been close to for a long time. The offensive guys are the younger guys that have come up through the program. The relationships with opposing coaches. We play in a very good league, and we've had some great battles throughout the years. But then probably the biggest relationship is the relationship with the kids. I've got the privilege of coaching some awesome kids, and hopefully I can still stay in contact with them.
We're joined by Kurt Richardson, longtime head coach of the Clarkston Wolves high school varsity football team, joining us on the Megacast. 35 years as the head coach of that program, 45 years in total with their football program there at Clarkston High School in Oakland County, retiring as the 16th winningest coach in MHSAA history in varsity football. Joining us on the Megacast. So now you go into retirement and the program continues on. Do you plan on being involved in either the hiring process of the next head coach or even just in transition as the program moves into a new era for really the first time in almost 40 years without you as the chief leader of the program?
Well, I'm not going to be involved in the selection process at all, but I am going to be involved in the transition. I'm going to sit down with him and say, here's all the good things. Here are the things that didn't work, and not so much X's and O's, but there's so much that goes into running a high school program behind the scenes. And after that, it's going to be their show. I'm going to be on the sidelines Friday night, cheering like crazy, but that's the extent of it.
Anybody that's able to stay in a coaching position for as long as you have in one program at one school or with one organization at any level has learned a lot about maintaining leadership, maintaining positive leadership that people look up to. So for you, as other coaches are coming up the rankings, both in the OAA and the league that Clarkston plays in across the state of Michigan and beyond, that are looking up to coaches that have had that longevity, what advice do you have for other coaches that are coming up to maintain the level of leadership that you have at Clarkston for so many years?
You've got to surround yourself with good people. Football, more than any other sport, you've got to rely on your assistants. There's so many different, jobs in football. And you've got to have good assistants that like being assistants, assistants that are going to stay with you. We've, Steve and Phil have been with me over 30 years, and the other guys, it's been a long period. We have very little changeover in our program, and that creates that consistency. That's all the way down to the junior high. And, those coaches know what I expect, so their kids end up knowing what I expect from them. So the continuity of coaches is probably the biggest thing.
Kurt, just another couple of minutes with you before we'll say goodbye. Anything else that you'd like to say to your community in Clarkston, to the football community, to the high school athletics community in the state of Michigan as you complete your 35 years as the head coach of the Clarkston Wolves varsity football program?
Well, I'd just like to thank, we've got a great tradition here of athletics, and we get great support from the town. And it's not just the people that come to the game when we need something financially. We put up a field house that costs $750,000, and we've got that all by donations and stuff. So the community of Clarkston is very special. They always step up. Thanks to all the former players. I hope they're better people because they've been in this program. Thanks again to all the assistant coaches, and thanks to the administration too. We've had, sometimes you can have an administrator that isn't gung-ho athletically, and that can hurt you, but we've had great support from the top to the bottom here.
Kurt, we appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
It's the Great Lakes water, and so what people do ends up in our waterways.
Flushable wipes are just evil. They should be thrown away. They're impossible to destroy, and they can cause significant problems.
One of the main things when you're cooking is to not dump fats, oils, and greases down your drains.
They stick to the sides of pipes. They stick to everything they come in contact with. Don't put it down the sink.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
We've talked to many Share Detroit charities and nonprofits over the past year or so, and now Share Detroit is doing its part to help the good people of Ukraine as they battle on their home front against the invasion by Russia. With us now is the Share Detroit co-founder, Sam Rosenberg, who is also the founder of Share Ukraine. Sam, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So let's first talk about Share Detroit and its history. You're the co-founder of Share Detroit. Can you tell us about the process of you co-founding that organization and kind of the motivation behind founding Share Detroit?
A friend of mine, Paul Vlasic, invested into the actual platform, the technology behind the Share Good platform. And I got involved about 3 years ago in trying to bring it into Detroit specifically. In order to create a community engagement platform and a system behind it to help Detroit charities or the charities in Detroit metro area that primarily focus on helping Detroit communities do good. Sort of like a dating site for organizations to do good and people who want to help them. We try to match people based on their value system, based on their preferences, passions, and things of that nature, so they can find the organization that closest meets their personalities and their life's preferences.
More information on sharedetroit.org, where you can learn more about the 283 charities and nonprofits supported by Share Detroit at this time. We're joined by co-founder of Share Detroit, Sam Rosenberg, who's also the founder of Share Ukraine as well. So what led to the launch of Share Ukraine? Obviously, it's as a result of the ongoing war in Ukraine, the Russian invasion of the country, and the need that they have over there for support. But why this website? Why now? And how does it help aid those in Ukraine?
Well, I am a Ukrainian Jew. I was, in fact, if I should have worn my T-shirt that says I may live in America, but I was made in Ukraine. I immigrated to the United States in 1978 when I was 13-year-old, young teenager. America is my home. I served 20 plus years in the U.S. military. When I got out of the military, I tried to do what I can to help the community that I'm a member of, and Share Good came out of that. I saw the writing on the wall, so to speak, since 2014 when Putin took over Crimea. And but honestly saying, never took it too seriously. Obviously, February 24th was a watershed moment for me and for the entire world, for me probably more personally. So I tried to figure out what I can do immediately to help the cause of justice, the cause of democracy. It just happens to be taking place in Ukraine. And I tried to figure out how I can leverage what I've already done, which is the Share Detroit platform, to do the same thing and bring in all kinds of organizations that are trying to help and kinds of folks that are looking for a way to help. And we created another nonprofit, practically speaking, called Share Ukraine. We created .org. We registered the domain name, linked the two together, and now I'm promoting both Share Ukraine.org and all the organizations that we're linking within that platform. As a result of that, actually a lot of nonprofits that are already on the platform reached out to us and asking what they can do. Unfortunately, besides raising funds and collecting goods that can be used in Ukraine for first aid and medical supplies and things of that nature, and help the humanitarian effort with the refugees, there isn't a lot that a lot of our local nonprofits can do now. But the reconstruction will come. Ukraine will defeat the enemy. It just may take a long time, and the reconstruction is going to be very complex, very long, and very expensive. And this is the time that I'm looking forward to actually working with the local nonprofits as well as all the national and international NGOs, and hopefully doing the same thing that we're doing for Detroit Metro, having Ukraine as the focus of help and a focus of nonprofit and social work going forward.
We're joined by Sam Rosenberg, who is the founder of Share Ukraine, the co-founder of Share Detroit, joining us on the Michigan Megacast. More information on sharedetroit.org, where you can also research under their charities and nonprofits listings for Share Ukraine, or type in shareukraine.org, which will redirect you to the Share Ukraine page on Share Detroit's website. And so on that website, what are some of the resources that people will find on the Share Ukraine website that will be able to lead them to providing aid, providing help to those in Ukraine who are in such great need of it right now as they battle Russia?
The primary, in Detroit metro area, the main organization that collects resources for Ukraine, as well as puts together events, is Ukrainian American Crisis Response Team, and they're prominent, linked in Share Ukraine. And they actually have their own, I think they have their own charity, right, as a separate charity within Share Ukraine. There's also Razom, R-A-Z-O-M, for Ukraine, all one word, .org, which is a national nonprofit that also got started up, I believe, in 2014. That collects, it's a national organization Razom stands for Together in Ukrainian. And it brings resources to help Ukraine both through education, humanitarian aid, political action, and so on and so on. Those are the two organizations that we feature prominently. There are others on the platform. There's also, if some people that really don't have a lot of energy or time or understanding of the situation, and they just want to simply donate and help, I collect money and I provide accountability for 100% of the dollars that Share Ukraine collects directly through Share Detroit. It's a nonprofit 501c3. And every week I select an NGO on the ground in Ukraine that we donate the money collected for that period to. The portal actually provides that information. Last week we collected a little over $12,000, and it's going to go to ComeBackAlive.ua, which is the organization that provides humanitarian aid and as well as the field first aid for the combatants in the zone. The next one is going to be helpukraine.org. These organizations are nominated and vetted by the people on the ground in Ukraine. I have friends and relatives still in the area, and I would communicate with them daily. I'm trying to do everything we possibly can between our communities to help.
So as you mentioned, Sam, you are Ukrainian, you have friends and relatives in Ukraine who are still there at this moment in time as they fight off this Russian invasion. It's been ongoing for several weeks now at this point. And so how does that help to inform your communications with them? How does that help to inform your actions as the founder of Share Ukraine and the person that's, as you said, responsible for where each of these dollars ultimately are going to these NGOs and to these other organizations that are providing aid? How does that communication with those who are on the front lines in Ukraine help to inform you of where those dollars are going to go week to week, month to month as you're running this organization?
Both organizations so far, like I said, a week ago, we started, a little over 10 days ago, we started collecting the money. And my primarily means of communicating the need is through, I started a personal newsletter, I guess, if you want to call it, or a rant. I started it with just my Outlook distribution list of about 1,500 people. And that in itself brought $12,000. And I'm going to continue doing this weekly with a different theme. And those themes that I'm communicating, and they're somewhat reflected with press releases and the contents on the shareukraine.org, are much influenced by the people on the ground. So what's important to them? How do they see the Western support so far? In terms of specifically trying to measure the value of those organizations, the organizational websites which are receiving the funds, they're actually posted and you can go and check them out. Their accountability is really very well detailed. There are spreadsheets right on the website, tells exactly what kind of items that were required for how much. And I checked the information yesterday, and it was as current as the 9th of March, which for real-time reporting is about as good as it gets. I haven't seen almost any other organization that provides reporting within 4 or 5 days of the actual activity. And plus, frankly saying, my friend, who is a retired general in the Ukrainian army, now is coordinating activities of the territorial defense forces. He's got a whole network of people on the ground that are doing the work. So my ask of them is really simple. Go ask the guy who's putting a bandage on somebody's arm what organization he's working for, and then we look to see if this is a legitimate NGO, if it's got some kind of a tax standing within the Ukrainian or European community, and that's about the extent of vetting. We'll look at their financials, we'll look at their past reporting, and I just ask the people on the ground, they're helping, and they're helping, they get the funds. There are other ways of helping, and I'm not discouraging anyone, but if you want it quick and simple and you just want to help, this a way. Many organizations do well.
Yeah, or if you just want a resource to go to find trusted help that is going to be on the front lines in Ukraine, or is going to be helping those in Ukraine without having to do that research necessarily yourself, and maybe run into some of these people that have been taking advantage of the crisis that's occurring over there in Eastern Europe. We just spoke recently with Melanie Ducanel from the Michigan Better Business Bureau about some of these charity scams that are popping up, that always pop up when there's something that when there's an issue domestically or certainly internationally that people want to help others with. And so having a resource like this, shareukraine.org, where you can learn more information about these organizations that have already been vetted, that are helping people directly on the front lines, that those on the front lines have reported to your organization as being those that are helping, and then you do research on them. It's so much helpful information for people here in the U.S., here in Michigan, who want to help those in Ukraine. We're joined by Sam Rosenberg. He is the founder of Share Ukraine, the co-founder of Share Detroit. You can learn more information on shareukraine.org or sharedetroit.org, and just search Share Ukraine under their 283 charities and nonprofits that they are currently supporting. There are also some events also listed on that website that you can participate in that will also be benefiting those in Ukraine. And so, Sam, as you continue to talk to those friends and family of yours who are in Ukraine and their interpretation of the quality of response from their friends and neighbors here in the West, what is the greatest need that they have at this moment in time in terms of support that they need from those that are willing to give it here in the U.S. and here in Michigan?
I mean, the most common thing that they're asking for, honestly saying, is something that we're not willing to do, which is provide a no-fly zone above Ukraine. This is something that we're not willing to do, and I'm not trying to make any political statements, but they certainly appreciate all the humanitarian aid and all the work that we have done. I mean, there's flights and flights and flights of medical equipment and first aid equipment and medicine and so on and so on and so on. And certainly the humanitarian work that people in Poland and Romania and Moldova and all the surrounding countries are doing is not just greatly appreciated. Everyone is amazed in Ukraine. So it's a fine balancing act between being grateful and asking for more. But when it's a David and Goliath thing, it's they got to do what they got to do. And one thing I wanted to add is that the long-term plan for shareukraine.org, because the people that are supporting us, ethnic Eastern European folks, we're very skeptical of large nonprofits and so on and so on. So one of the things we will try to do, and we're already getting the resources to do it, is provide family to family, a person to person type of a matching relationship to where a family can adopt a family in Ukraine to help them with the reconstruction. I have not countless, but many friends in Ukraine who life just went to was destroyed. Their apartments, their living quarters, everything that they've built up and were hoping to save for their children disappeared. So there's going to be a tremendous amount of opportunity to help these folks one-on-one, family to family, without any kind of intermediaries, with administrative and marketing costs and all this other stuff. And really, that's what I want to do. I want to provide the most efficient mechanism where people can help and see the results of their help.
We're joined by Sam Rosenberg, the founder of Share Ukraine, the co-founder of Share Detroit. More information either on sharedetroit.org or go directly to their Share Ukraine page at shareukraine.org to learn more information about different organizations that you can provide donations to, about volunteer opportunities here in the local area, and events that will be benefiting those in Ukraine as they fight the Russians who have been invading their country for many weeks now. Sam, just another couple of minutes before we'll need to say goodbye. Anything else at this time that would be important for our audience to know about Share Ukraine or ways that they can help?
Important not, but I can make a plea. We living in the West have very short memories when it comes to these type of conflicts, unfortunately. I personally believe this is 1936 all over again. And if we thought about it, what could we have done in 1936 if we knew what's going to happen? Certainly, it's not just a theatrical statement. We don't know what's going to happen, but it certainly looks, feels, and feels similarly to that. I hope that this is not another World War II, i.e. World War III. I hope we won't have another Holocaust, but it's certainly looking as we would. It just happens to be not for Jews, but for Ukrainians. It doesn't matter who the people are. People are people, and we should have value all life equally. I just ask that we never forget what's happening today. So if you have a chance, influence your local officials, try to change some street names, park names to reflect the city names that are probably no longer in existence today, whether it's Kharkiv, whether it's Kherson or Sochi or whatever that may be in I apologize about Sochi. Sochi is in Russia. But this way our kids, when they look at this funny park named Kherson, and they're going to say, Mom, what the heck is Kherson? And you can explain to your kids there was a war, the city was destroyed, occupied by the Russians, and this will live in our memories, not because we want to remember the negative things, it's because we don't want these things to repeat. We could have put an end to it in 2014. Now we live with the consequences. That's what I wanted to appeal to people with.
Sam, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your listeners.
Appreciate having you on.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
211, how can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
We may come from different organizations,
but we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Neighborhood storm drains carry water directly to local creeks and streams. No filters, no treatment.
Storm drains also help reduce street flooding when it rains.
So clearing storm drains and the areas nearby of trash and leaves helps keep them for rain only.
It is easy to do your part by adopting a storm drain.
Find a storm drain, check it, and clear it every month.
So keep storm drains for rain only.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM.
We as Michiganders feel connected to this resource in a way that I think is really powerful.
Conservation starts with a caring, committed community.
For me, it's peaceful to have a relationship with the river.
Every single one of us has a role to make sure that those waterways stay safe and healthy, being careful about what goes down the storm drain.
Just even eliminating some of your single-use plastic makes a difference.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Did you know that nearly 3.31 million Americans don't get their annual checkup? Going to the doctor regularly is extremely important and is a crucial factor in maintaining good health. Make sure you are visiting your local doctor often and telling them about any health concerns you have. For more information, contact your local healthcare provider. This message is brought to you by WBHS Digital Media Arts Program and 89.3 Lakes FM.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Welcome back to the Michigan Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. To learn more about the program at civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you will find information on our entire network of stations, including My Michigan TV, otherwise known as My. Joining us now is the Director of Community Engagement at Green Living Science, which works to transform Detroit by informing Detroiters about waste and recycling. Madison Kraus joins us now on the Michigan Megacast. Madison, thank you for being with us.
Hi, thanks for having me, and please call me Maddie.
All right, Maddie, thanks for being on the program. I appreciate having you on. Can you first tell us about Green Living Science and what you do to encourage recycling and inform the public about recycling in the Detroit area?
Sure, I'd love to. Green Living Science was created about 10 years ago as an initiative to spread recycling education to students. Since then, we've evolved our programming to not only incorporate youth, but also we work with community members to sign them up for recycling bins in the city and do various education initiatives with them. And we work with businesses throughout Detroit to make sure that we can set up effective recycling systems in all different types of businesses around the city.
We're joined by Maddie Kraus, Director of Community Engagement at Green Living Science, a Shared Detroit-supported charity and nonprofit. More information on shareddetroit.org. And so the Green Living Science works with the Detroit school system in the city, and that's actually where it sort of found its origin as well. Can you talk about the partnership between the Detroit schools and your organization?
Yeah. So our work with youth is really the heartbeat of the organization. We like to say that we are creating the next generation of environmental leaders in Detroit. We work with the Office of Science there to set different types of curriculum, and that includes our assemblies. A lot of students are very familiar with our bee mascot that we bring out to schools. We also do summer camps with students, and we have after-school programs that are available as well. Currently, we're providing virtual programming to cope with the pandemic, but we also have outdoor programming that's socially distanced, and that includes our Be Green Plastic Steam Machine, which is a really cool walk through time and plastic educational tool that we use. And we also have books that we distribute to students. We've got 3 of them. The newest one will be coming out soon. It's called Be Green in Your Backyard, and it's an activity book, and we're really excited about that.
So can you talk, too, about the Be Green business program? It's another initiative that Green Living Science is outputting at this time. Can you tell us about that program and how it's involving and engaging people in Detroit?
Yeah, the Be Green business program has been around since 2015. We work with a diverse range of businesses, from apartments to hospitals to small businesses. And each business is unique, so we provide a customized approach to setting up recycling and waste reduction systems. We provide staff and tenant education, and we help with things like environmental purchasing, figuring out composting, setting up signage, and anything you might need in order to reduce waste from your business. This is one of my programs that I run, and it's one of my favorite parts of our programming, just because I get to work with so many amazing business owners and entrepreneurs throughout the city.
So Maddie, tell us about your background and how you ultimately got involved with Green Living Science.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Metro Detroit. I got a bachelor's degree from Michigan State and then moved up to Colorado to get a master's in sustainability planning and management. Shortly after, I moved back here and started working with the Green Task Force in Detroit City Council. And I really got into sustainability because of my love for nature. And that evolved into an understanding that there's a better way for us to live to reduce our carbon footprint, to reduce our waste, and to reduce harmful pollution.
And so it's interesting, too, because so much of this work is being done directly with Detroiters in the city. And often our cities have a different relationship with pollution, certainly, but with environmental factors, because cities are so active and because there are certain factors in the way that cities are designed that have a different impact on the environment. How does that help to inform the efforts of Green Living Science and the education that you're providing to those that live in the city and ultimately are going to be the greatest stewards for Detroit?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. We really focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and environmental justice in our work. It's very central to what we do and how we approach the topics. We're constantly striving to ensure recycling access for all residents in the city. We're uplifting initiatives that will reduce pollution and the amount of waste that we're sending to landfills, such as the Break Free from Plastic movement. And all of these things, we talk with our residents constantly about how recycling is central to conserving natural resources and reducing the amount of pollution from plastic production.
We're joined by Maddie Krause. She is the Director of Community Engagement at Green Living Science, a Share Detroit-supported charity and nonprofit. A couple places you can learn more about GLS. You can either visit sharedetroit.org and search for Green Living Science. They are one of almost 300 different charities and nonprofits in Detroit and in the metro area that are supported by Share Detroit. They just added one this week. It's now, the count is at 284 and only growing over time. Or you can visit Green Living Science's website at greenlivingscience.org. That's greenlivingscience.org. Maddie, there's another interesting project out at the Lincoln Street Art Park through your organization, or connected with your organization. Can you tell us about that project and what that is doing to impact the city of Detroit?
Yeah, Lincoln Street Art Park is a really beautiful space for local artists to showcase their work. We really try to practice the 3 R's by using materials there that are reused and upcycled, and it reflects on the beauty of the space. Currently, Recycle Here, which is where the art park is adjacent to, is under an exciting renovation. We're hoping to bring back programming to the art park in the coming spring. So next year, we'll be bringing back our programming and our volunteer opportunities after our renovations are done.
We're joined by Maddie Krause, Director of Community Engagement at Green Living Science, a Share Detroit-supported charity and nonprofit. More information on their website, greenlivingscience.org. That's greenlivingscience.org. And so education being such a critical part of what Green Living Science does in the city of Detroit to support efforts to recycle, what are some of those learning opportunities that are available to everyday Detroiters, and where can they get access to some of these resources? Certainly on your website at greenlivingscience.org, but in other places as well, if they may not have access or reliable access or easy access to the internet.
Well, I also want to highlight DetroitRecycles.org. That is also a great resource, lots of information on there. If you don't have access to the internet, you can always give us a call. We are happy to chat with you. You can stop by Recycle Here, and they can help you out as well. We also offer free recycling workshops, and we will be happy to come by any events that you're hosting. So you can find us out in the community at your local rec center. We're trying to set up some workshops at libraries coming up here soon once they're reopening. So give us a call, find out when our next workshop might be, where you can find us, or if you want to set up one of your own for your own block club or neighborhood, then feel free to reach out. You can call us at 313-871-4000, extension 3.
Again, that phone number, 313-871-4000, extension number 3, or you can visit them online, greenlivingscience.org, for more information. So, of course, you're involved with Share Detroit, one of 284 charities and nonprofits associated with Share Detroit over at sharedetroit.org. And one of the focuses that they have, one of the many focuses they have, is drawing people to find these organizations that are in areas of interest or areas of passion for them, and then helping them find ways that they can help these organizations through either donations, through volunteerism, or so on. At this moment in time, what are some of the critical needs of your organization to continue to do the great work that it's doing in Detroit?
Well, for our listeners from Detroit, we ask you to be a recycling champion. Talk to your neighbors about recycling. Make sure everyone knows about the recycling program. We know a lot of folks that will see our Detroit Recycles bins out on the street, but they don't know how to get one. So if you're listening, help out your neighbors, help out your friends and family that are also in Detroit so that they can have access as well. And if you're interested, reach out to us. We're always looking for ways to collaborate with different community groups, different businesses, and different partners. We're also always looking for donors and partners to help support our organization and programming. So check out our website to learn more about how you can donate online.
So if people in Detroit or outside of Detroit would like to get involved with Green Living Science, what sort of volunteer opportunities are available through your organization?
Sure. Well, it's been a bit difficult for us to have volunteer opportunities, as I mentioned, since Art Park has been closed for renovation. And because of the pandemic, it's been difficult to get together in person. But as the weather starts warming up, we are going to start doing some more park cleanups coming up soon. And we're hoping to set up some canvassing events where we're going to be going out into neighborhoods, knocking on doors, feet on the street style, and engaging with residents about how they can sign up for recycling carts.
We're joined by Maddie Krause, the Director of Community Engagement at Green Living Science, joining us on the Megacast. You can find them in a couple of places. Search for them under the Charities and Nonprofits list at sharedetroit.org or visit greenlivingscience.org. That's greenlivingscience.org. You can also call them 313-871-4000, extension number 3. 313-871-4000, extension number 3 is their phone number. Maddie, just another couple minutes before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else at this time that would be important for our audience to know about Green Living Science or the ways that they can get involved with your organization?
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, we really work through all avenues to try and transform our recycling and waste reduction systems. There's education on so many levels, from youth all the way up to adults and retired communities. We also work with local and state policy. So if you're interested in learning more about how you can get involved in recycling policy in Detroit and also statewide, feel free to reach out. We're happy to provide you with some resources and opportunities.
And then, Maddie, you mentioned that there are some opportunities through your organization or through communication with your organization. For those in Detroit that would like to drop off recyclable items, what are some of those locations they may be able to drop off items, or how can they go about working with Green Living Science in order to arrange dropping off their recyclables?
So Recycle Here, located at 5960 Lincoln Street, is open on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. You can take all sorts of recyclable items there, everything that's accepted curbside, which is cardboard, paper, plastic, metal, and glass. You can also drop off shredded paper there, books, and styrofoam. It's one of the only places in the city that you can recycle styrofoam, so I highly recommend going to Recycle Here for that. They also have what we call a junk hole, which is a bit of a take a penny, leave a penny situation. So if you've got some random items laying around your house that you'd like to donate, you can take it over to Recycle Here as well. And I also want to highlight our hazardous waste facility, which is at 2000 East Ferry Street, open every Thursday and every fourth Saturday if you've got any household hazardous waste that you need to get rid of.
Maddie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great to meet you.
Appreciate it. More information on sharedetroit.org as well as on their website, greenlivingscience.org. Again, that phone number, 313-871-4000. That's 313-871-4000, extension number 3. Visit their website at greenlivingscience.org. Or, of course, their drop-off location for recyclables, 5960 Lincoln Street in Detroit. That's open Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. 5960 Lincoln Street in Detroit. For more information, greenlivingscience.org, or go over to sharedetroit.org to learn more about Green Living Science, as well as the 283 other charities and nonprofits in the Detroit area. We'll take one final break, and then on the other side, we'll wrap things up today and give you more information about where you can find everything you need to know about the Megacast and more information on COVID-19 and other top stories across the state of Michigan. This is the Michigan Megacast.
Parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at ivaccinate.org.
We may come from different organizations,
But we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Most of the pollution that goes into our rivers is carried by rainwater that flows off of roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
The leaves and bark of a single tree can retain a surprising amount of rainwater. Depending on its size and species, it could be 100 gallons or more.
It is estimated that an urban forest can reduce annual runoff by up to 7%.
Here's one thing that we know can help keep our water clean.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Welcome back to the Michigan Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. To learn more about the program on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll find information on all of our partnering television, radio, and web outlets that join us every single day for the Oakland County Megacast, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., and for this, the Michigan Megacast, 11 a.m. to noon. Big thank you to everybody that joined us on today's edition of the program. Of course, Maddie Krause from Green Living Science, a Share Detroit-supported charity and nonprofit. Sam Rosenberg from Share Ukraine. Kurt Richardson, the now retired former head coach of the Clarkston Wolves varsity football team in Oakland County. Senator Gary Peters for joining us at 11 o'clock. Dave Coulter, Oakland County Executive, and of course Craig Bryson from the Road Commission for Oakland County. All of those interviews on demand, or will be on demand at least by mid to late afternoon today at civiccentertv.com/megacast. Also highly encourage you to head over to our coronavirus page at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus to keep up to date on everything that you need to know about COVID-19 from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and the Oakland County Health Division, as well as our top stories from across the state of Michigan from many great journalistic outlets. You can click on those articles, read them in full, read their supporting materials. And we encourage you, should you have the means to do so, to subscribe to these publications, support local journalism all across the state of Michigan, whatever region you may be in, as they are continuing to be on the front lines, investigating these stories, getting critical information about key topics, and all across the board in the state of Michigan to you on your front doorstep and on your computer screen as well. Those articles, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Big thank you as well to our crew making this show possible every single day. Calvin Brown, our technical director, with me here for the full 2 hours in the studio right across from me, pressing all the buttons, keeping us on the air, keeping things moving. Jared Clark, our Zoom producer over at the office of My Michigan TV, coordinating with each of our guests to make sure that they smoothly get into our Zoom meetings and are able to join us on every edition of the show. He is over there in Troy at the office of My Michigan TV. Of course, the king of television, Larry Nyland, our producer, booking all of our programs and getting both the guests and us ready for an informed conversation each and every day. And Maddie Mushkin out at Master Control, helping us on and off the air before and after each show. On My Michigan TV, coming up next, it's Steve Leto live from noon to 1, from 1 to 2. It's Larry and Maddie live. We will return on Friday at 10 a.m.